California Congressman John Garamendi. Boy, Congressman, your state's pretty nice, especially when it's snowing in D.C. I got to tell you that.
Give it up. Don't say that you're in sunny Santa Monica and we're in snowy Washington. It's just not fair, Leland.
Yeah, well, you know, a lot of things aren't fair. A lot of people would argue what's going on in Washington isn't fair to just about anybody, sir.
No, you're right.
I guess the question now comes: you listen to Molly's report, and then what Kristen said afterwards. It sounds like Groundhog Day all over again.
Well, it certainly is, and this is really a situation that is really outrageous. We're basically holding 800,000 of our government employees and literally the entire American public as leverage to obtain $5.7 billion to build a wall. It's outrageous. And the earlier report about the question of Trump and Russia, if Putin wanted to really hurt America, you'd shut down the American government, the FBI, to transportation, all of that. So let's get this thing going.
Let's deal with the.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's deal with the shutdown first. We'll get to Putin in a second because I know you want to talk about that. At some level, though, this is about politics for Democrats. $5 billion for a wall is a drop in the bucket. It's less than the federal government spends on Medicare fraud, for God's sakes. At some level, aren't Democrats the one holding this money hostage? If the president wants $5 billion, is that worth keeping all these people out of a job for?
Well, it's the president that shoulders the responsibility here. He said so in the Oval Office in an earlier meeting. He said, I will shut down the government unless I get what I want. And what he wanted at that time was $5 billion. It's now $5.7. In his earlier budget that he presented to the Congress, just over a year ago, he asked for $1.6 billion. He got that. And that was the amount of money that was being discussed before that Oval Office meeting when it suddenly went to $5 and now $5.7 billion. The problem here is that the American government and in literally the entire nation is hostage to the president's desire to get this border wall.
Listen to this from Lindsey Graham. Get your reaction. Hold on.
Every Democrat that I've worked with for about 10 years now has agreed to funding for barriers/walls on Obama's watch, on Bush's watch, and all of a sudden it's a bad thing on Trump's watch. What is he supposed to do? Just give in? He's not going to give in.
All of a sudden, if you call it barriers and security, are you guys okay with the 5.7? Because Democrats have been okay with those kind of numbers for border security for a long time.
I was actually intrigued by the word peaches. Maybe that's the word we need to use. Yes, we have been strong supporters of border security going back more than 20 years for myself, going back to the time I was lieutenant governor, not so far from
So is the government shut down and these 800,000 people without paychecks over the semantics of whether it's called a wall, whether it's called fencing, whether it's called a barrier?
Well, we have the obligation to the American taxpayers that the money be spent wisely. Just recently, in the last couple of days, have we received any information about where that $5.7 billion would be spent? Even so, we don't know exactly where the problems are. We don't know the efficiency or the effectiveness of any particular reach of what might become a fence, a wall, or some sort of a barricade. We need that kind of information. We need the time to negotiate, reopen government. Just yesterday, I was talking.
To your point,
Go ahead.
Even some of your Republican colleagues on the other side of the aisle agree with you that it'd be easier to get the money if they were more specific. I want to give you a chance to weigh in about some of your Democratic colleagues who are down in Puerto Rico on a fundraising trip and junket, some would call. Sarah Sanders tweeting, Democrats in Congress are so alarmed about federal workers not getting paid, they're partying on the beach instead of negotiating a compromise to reopen the government and secure the border. Fair to say the optics of this aren't great. You're in D.C. Should your Democratic colleagues be there with you?
Well, actually, they went to Puerto Rico for perhaps a fundraiser, but that was a small portion of what they wanted to do there. They were looking at the problems of Puerto Rico. No, actually, take a look at their agenda. They were there to observe. And just remember, 3 days ago,
they're seeing Hamilton. We got pictures of. They're seeing Hamilton. We got pictures of on the beach. We have stories of big dinners that they're at, according to the Washington Examiner. This isn't a roll up your hands fact finding.
Let's get the full agenda, and then we can answer that question. I don't know the full agenda, but I do know, talking to a couple of folks that went there, that they were looking at an issue that the president actually created when he said he was going to create a national emergency and then take $2.5 billion.
I know you can see the picture that was on the screen. That doesn't look like exactly figuring out what's going on in Puerto Rico from a national emergency standpoint.
We need to put their entire agenda up, and then we can debate whether they're partying or not. But the reality is that the president created a serious problem for Puerto Rico.
I'll make you this offer, and we got to run. But call some of them, get the agenda, send it to us. We'll have you on to talk about it.
Well, why don't you ask them, those who were there, to talk about it. I'm not there. I am in Washington, and we'll see. We'll see if we can get the agenda. Then you can ask them what they did.
Fair point, sir. Enjoy the snow. Stay warm. Stay safe.
Enjoy the sun.